A man hijacks a plane, demands $200,000, receives the money, jumps from a plane at night during a storm, disappears forever. How can someone vanish without leaving a trace? The FBI spent 45 years hunting for answers, and what they found only deepened the mystery of the perfect crime that was never solved. On the afternoon of November 24, 1971, a man walked up to the Northwest Orient Airlines counter in Portland and bought a one-way ticket to Seattle. The name on the slip was Dan Cooper. He paid cash, no questions asked. Minutes later, he boarded Flight 305, a Boeing 727, and took his place in seat 18E, mid-cabin, right over the wing, close enough to disappear into the crowd, but far enough from the cockpit to seem unremarkable. He wore a dark suit, a neatly pressed white shirt, a black tie with a mother-of-pearl pin, and carried a briefcase. His shoes were polished, his hair combed, his manner reserved. To the crew and the 36 other passengers, he looked like any traveling businessman, calm, polite, even forgettable. Flight attendants later described him as soft-spoken, with no trace of anger or nerves. He ordered a bourbon and soda, handed the stewardess a bill, and watched the ground fade away as the Boeing 727 lifted off. There was nothing in his face or his voice to hint at what was coming. No one on board could have guessed that this quiet man in seat 18E was about to vanish into American legend, or that every detail, the ticket, the seat, the ordinary suit, would become the first pieces of a puzzle that still refuses to be solved. The question lingered in every later interview. How could someone so ordinary slip past every eye, leaving only a name and a seat number behind? At cruising altitude, the man in seat 18E leaned toward Florence Schaffner and handed her a folded slip of paper. She tucked it into her purse, expecting a phone number or a casual note. Instead, he spoke in a low, even voice. "Miss, you'd better read that. I have a bomb." Schaffner paused, then opened the note. The message was clear. "I have a bomb in my briefcase. I will use it if necessary. I want you to sit next to me. You are being hijacked." She looked up, searching his face for any sign of a bluff. He met her gaze, steady and polite. When she asked to see proof, he nodded and set the briefcase on his lap. With a practiced motion, he clicked it open. Inside, nestled in the lining, were 8 red cylinders, sticks, she thought, bundled together by red insulated wires. A cylindrical battery sat at one end, wires snaking between the tubes. No one else on the plane noticed. The world outside the window was silent and gray. In the cabin, time seemed to slow. Schaffner slid into the seat beside him, heart pounding, and listened as he dictated his demands. $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, 2 primary and 2 reserve. No die packs, no tricks. He wanted the money ready on arrival in Seattle. Every word was measured, every instruction precise. Tina Mucklow, the youngest flight attendant, was called over next. She became his messenger, relaying instructions to the cockpit and back. Cooper never raised his voice. He never threatened, never panicked. The bomb, real or not, was convincing enough. The crew followed every order to the letter, trapped in a pressurized tube thousands of feet above the ground, unsure if the next move would trigger disaster. No one could tell if the device was genuine. The red sticks, the wires, the battery, it looked deadly, and that was enough. In that moment, the man in the black suit controlled the fate of everyone on board. The question of what he would do next hung in the air, unanswered. The Boeing 727 touched down at Seattle-Tacoma International just after nightfall. Rain streaked the tarmac, headlights flickering across the fuselage. On Cooper's command, the cabin door opened and the passengers, 36 in all, filed out, clutching coats and purses, their eyes darting for any sign of the man who had held their fate in his hands. Only the flight crew and Cooper remained behind. The plane sat isolated, engines humming, as if suspended between two worlds. Outside, FBI agents and airline staff worked in silence. A canvas bag stuffed with $200,000 in $20 bills was carried to the aircraft, along with 4 parachutes, 2 civilian, 2 military. Cooper watched every step, never leaving his seat, his voice still calm, his instructions exact. He counted the bundles, checked the parachutes, and nodded. No one dared rush him. Refueling began, the process slow and methodical, stretching the tension minute by minute. The crew waited for his next move, but Cooper seemed in no hurry. He dictated the flight plan for the next leg, specifying altitude, speed, and a route south toward Mexico. Even as the authorities surrounded the plane, the man in the black suit never lost control. The clock ticked, the rain fell, and every decision belonged to him. Not a single detail slipped from his grasp. The Boeing 727's rear air stair was the one feature no other commercial jet could offer, a door that opened downward into the slipstream, a built-in escape route designed for remote airports, but never intended for a mid-air exit. Cooper knew this. He asked for the air stair to remain unlocked, and the crew followed every instruction. The jet lifted from Seattle with only the flight crew and Cooper aboard, climbing into a sky thick with rain and darkness. Outside, the Pacific Northwest vanished behind clouds, the ground below invisible, the only light the faint glow from the cockpit and the instrument panel. Cooper directed the pilots to fly low, just 10,000 feet, far below the usual cruising altitude. He ordered the flaps set to 15 degrees and the speed held at 170 knots, barely above stall, slow enough for a parachute jump. The cabin was cold, the temperature outside dropping to single digits, degrees Celsius, wind gusts hammering the fuselage. The flight path traced a lonely line south, away from the city, toward the black wilderness. At 8:13 p.m., a warning light flickered in the cockpit. The aft air stair latch had been triggered. The crew felt a change, a subtle pressure, a vibration through the frame. No one saw Cooper leave. There was no final word, no farewell. The last trace was the sound of the air stair lowering into the rushing air, swallowed by the storm. In that instant, the man in the black suit crossed from fact into myth. The hijacking ended and the mystery began. Where he landed, how he survived, or if he survived at all, became questions that would haunt investigators for decades. The moment Cooper vanished into the storm, the search widened from a single aircraft to a manhunt that swept across the Pacific Northwest. The FBI codenamed the case Norjack and mobilized hundreds of agents, turning every possible lead into an interview, every rumor into a line of inquiry. Over 10,000 square miles of dense forest, rivers, and rugged terrain were combed by ground teams, helicopters, and fixed-wing aircraft. Thousands of people were questioned: pilots, skydivers, loggers, and residents. Yet for all the scale and urgency, not a single trace of Cooper surfaced. No body was recovered. No parachute confirmed as his was ever found. The evidence faded into the trees, leaving only questions and the chilling sense that the man in the black suit had simply disappeared. 9 years after the hijacking, a boy named Brian Ingram knelt in the sand at Tina Bar, a quiet stretch along the Columbia River. His small shovel struck something strange, a bundle of decaying $20 bills, waterlogged and fused together by mud. The date was February 10, 1980. What he pulled from the earth totaled $5,800, still wrapped in rubber bands, the edges crumbling at his touch. Forensic examiners wasted no time. Serial numbers on the bills matched those recorded by the FBI in 1971, confirming their origin beyond all doubt. The ransom money had resurfaced, battered by years in the elements, but unmistakably linked to D.B. Cooper's vanished fortune. Yet the find answered nothing. No one could explain how the cash traveled from the sky to a riverbank miles from the projected drop zone. The money's presence on Tina Bar only deepened the mystery, leaving behind a silent question. What path had it taken? And what did it say about Cooper's fate? Richard Floyd McCoy drew immediate suspicion after hijacking a United Airlines flight just 5 months after Cooper's escape. He matched Cooper's military and skydiving background, and his crime mirrored the original in method and daring. Yet investigators never placed McCoy in Portland on November 24, 1971, and fingerprints and DNA from Flight 305 offered no connection. Kenneth Christensen stood out for his insider knowledge. He worked for Northwest Orient, understood the Boeing 727, and had Army parachuting experience. His quiet life and resemblance to sketches kept his name in circulation, but no forensic link ever surfaced. Robert Rackstraw, a Vietnam veteran with pilot and skydiving credentials, became a suspect years later when coded letters hinted at his involvement. DNA and handwriting tests failed to confirm the theory. Theories about Cooper's fate remain divided. Some see death during the jump as likely, others argue he survived and vanished. Military skill is debated as a requirement, while the possibility remains that Cooper's true identity was never uncovered. 50 years on, the man with the calm smile remains a phantom, his true name still locked away. As new theories surface and evidence resurfaces, fascination only grows. The line between myth and reality blurs further with every unanswered question. Some mysteries refuse to die. What would you uncover?